What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Feed. Today I have on Casey Adams. He's a serial entrepreneur, author, podcaster, and co-founder of his new company, MediaKits, which we'll get into, all at the age of 21 years young. So excited to have you on, man. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you, Andrew? I appreciate you.
Good. There's so much I want to talk about and ask, so I just want to get right into it. So I like to kind of how I start my podcast is walk my audience through the origins of my guest. And you have so many chapters already at the age of 21. So I think it's just good to start from the beginning of you growing up in small town Virginia to what got you curious about personal development.
Yeah. Well, first off, I appreciate you having me on today. I always love being on podcasts, and as you know, I've had a podcast for 5 years, so it's good to be on the other side sometimes. But as you said, I'm from a small town in Virginia known as Chesterfield County. And what really got me into this world of business and entrepreneurship was an injury that at the time was very catastrophic and led to depression and anxiety and just a lonely road. So when I was a sophomore in high school, as I said, I was an athlete my entire life, played hockey for 10 years. And then sophomore year, I was playing football. And it was the first day of hitting practice. So, you're going out of the field, your whole team putting on their pads, getting ready to start doing some drills with, hitting. And it was like the second or third drill known as the B drill, where you're just one-on-one with your opponent and the goal is to take the opponent down. And I ended up hitting the ground in a weird way. And the next morning I wake up, because it wasn't one of those injuries where it was like, oh my God, this all happened so instantly. I hurt my neck a little bit and I was like, that didn't feel good. But I woke up the next morning and I couldn't move my neck at all. I couldn't move my head. It was extreme pain. And I remember going into the doctor, just, an oblivious 16-year-old at the time, going to go in there, get an x-ray, walk out, I'll be good in 2 weeks, right? That was my expectation. And I remember after I get the x-ray, I'm in the doctor with my mom, and the doctor comes in and he goes, I have some good news and I have some bad news for you. The good news is you're not paralyzed and you avoided something that could have been very catastrophic. The bad news is that you have to be in a neck brace for the next 6 months of your life and you can never play football again. And hearing this at the time, it didn't register as quickly as it should have. I was very in denial. But, coming from that doctor appointment, the next 6 months of my life really transformed everything from the way I think to, my career path, to the people that I was starting to surround myself with. And I just became immersed in business and entrepreneurship and social media marketing. But at the time, it really stemmed from just having free time to be on my phone, to be on YouTube, where I stumbled into this world sort of by accident. And, from there, the rest is history.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's incredible. Obviously, it's definitely tough to go through an injury like that, but for the better. Obviously,
Totally.
It trajected your career in a whole other way. But, I'm curious on I know that you started in this personal development during this time period in your life. How did it make you feel? Like you said, you stumbled upon it. What was that intuition of whoa, I'm a little bit more intrigued about it. What stood out the most to it?
Yeah. I think one of my biggest advantages has always been just a natural curiosity. I think it's so easy to see something and instantly shut it off because it's not a typical thing you do, whether that's reading or whether that's, going on a run, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being 16 and, some of the early just social mentors I started following were people like Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and Ty Lopez. And I remember hearing them just speaking about social media marketing and how it's, the next big opportunity when it comes to business, building a personal brand, podcasting. And I was just hearing all of these things and the way they were speaking about it. But what really changed the way I approached it was really Ty at the time. He was talking about these 4 pillars: health, wealth, love, and happiness, and this whole 67-step program that he was selling at the time. And it was just guidance and advice from his mentors. And the timing couldn't have been better because I was someone that wasn't necessarily looking for that. But when I heard someone, going through the lessons learned over the years from the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And it's this 67-day course. I was like, I don't have anything else to do with my time. Might as well just, call my buddy. We both put in $30 and we'll see. And it was that 67-day period where I was just very immersed in personal development, personal growth. I had my parents help me buy more books than I ever have my entire life, from Think and Grow Rich to How to Win Friends and Influence People to some of the early Tony Robbins books, and even which led me to Gary Vee and buying his book, Crush It, or Crushing It at the time. And, through doing that and just having that natural curiosity, I didn't push it away, and I really embraced it, and it became my new identity. Because I think for me at the time, and I'm sure people have gone through this, something traumatic happens, whether that's, death in the family or a neck injury like myself, whatever it may be, you get fired from your job. You have to quickly, or you try to, in my opinion, or in my experience, like create this new identity, right? So for me, it was from this young athlete in high school to like, what does this business world have to do with, my future? And I've always had a foresight to know, like, I'm going to go to college, but as soon as I started pursuing these new avenues, I quickly changed my mind and decided to go all in from sophomore year. And, fast forward to senior year, I really had a good footing and, moved out to Arizona a month after I graduated high school. I had a media company at the time. I've had my podcast for 2-3 years. And, we'll get into the whole story there, but that's what inevitably led to MediaKits, which we launched last year. But it was, in that moment deciding just, hey, I'm going to go all in on this. And this is what I want to do for the rest of my life in terms of business and entrepreneurship, and just really committing to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much I want to unpack there. There's something that I, researching you and following your journey and things like that. And even with like successful people too, and the positive reinforcement aspect, because I think of this thing like these minor, like early successes are so pivotal, like not like early minor, like in like you have to be like 20 years old, but like when you're starting your career and you start having these really like minor successes, which for you, it was the Ty Lopez 67-day step course, or the Snapchat affiliate marketing, or your 60 interviews in 90 days. Like you did that, you crushed that. And that like created this like momentum. And I think like momentum like harnesses all the results that you created. How can people like, have those early minor successes, and one, just be aware of it, and two, like utilize that power to like move forward?
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a solid point. I think early momentum is genuinely what allowed me to keep going. Like without the small micro wins, and when I say micro, I'll define that. But when I was in high school, sophomore, junior year, I remember it so vividly, even though it was 4 or 5 years ago now. But the biggest thing was like my parents, right? I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. Both my brothers went to college and they ended up dropping out. And I was in high school, like taking AP classes and honors classes and excelling up until like freshman, sophomore year, where I stumbled upon this and I sort of just reprioritized what's important to me. And, I was like, I don't want to take that many classes next year. Let me just do the bare minimum. And it was a struggle with my parents because they were like, oh my God, this is our youngest child. He was the one that was going to go to college and do that whole path. And what mattered to me at that time, it was exactly what you said, like early wins, showing momentum, not only for myself, but for my parents, so that they can believe in what I'm doing, so that they can allow me to do the things I want to do, whether that's, flying out to LA for the weekend to go to an event and selling them on letting me do that, or going to New York, or driving up to DC during a Thursday or Friday on a school day to go to a car event with my now business partner, but just good friend at the time, Kieran and Jeff. So, when I started interviewing some cool people, I remember the biggest thing that was exciting for my mom, and we still talk about it to this day, was one of my, I think it was like my 30th or 35th interview, was with a guy named Christopher Drama Pfaff, better known as Drama.
I love Drama.
Yeah, Drama. So he was on the MTV show for people that don't know.
And group chat podcast. Yep.
Of course. Group chat podcast. Young and Reckless is a clothing brand that he started back in the day on MTV with Rob Dyrdek, and they had Robin Big and Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory. So I've been watching him probably since I was like 11, 12 years old. Who knows exactly how long. But I remember when I first booked him on my podcast, I did the first interview just on Zoom, and my mom like came into the room and said hello, and she was like freaking out because we used to watch it together. It was like our show.
Yep.
And like
Yep.
seeing moments like that and reflecting on that, like it allowed my mom to be like, wow, not only like that necessarily wasn't a direct correlation of like making money, but it was just a reinforcement to my commitment and the ability and opportunities that were coming my way. Because we're, to bring context to this conversation, I'm from a very small town and right outside of Richmond called Chesterfield. Very, very small. People that grow up there tend to stay there and don't, always move
Yeah.
out. And just the mentality is so different. So to be interviewing this guy who lives in LA and this whole thing, looking back, it's like, the world is very small and there's an abundance of opportunities. But at the time, it was an incredible milestone. And I think, and I know this is a long point, but something as simple as that, or I remember when I was 16, 17, when I started, like my first company was doing Facebook advertising for local businesses.
Mhm.
So I was working, with my dentist and with my chiropractor and with the local sports shop, and they were paying me a monthly retainer to just manage their Instagram or to run, some Facebook ads. And when I started just making a good monthly income in terms of the retainers I had, I come from a background where my mom, she's been a special ed teacher for almost a decade now. And, I don't come from this family that had a lot of money. So when I started making a couple $1,000s a month at 16 years old, they were not only proud, but it allowed me to have more flexibility to do the things I wanted to do and to let them believe in me more. So to your point, I think if there's anyone, whether that's still in high school or just a young entrepreneur out there, stacking those small wins, especially when it comes to dealing with your parents or just proving it to yourself, is very, very important, right? Like actually starting the podcast and putting out episodes is a whole different thing than like wanting to start a podcast and thinking about it, right? Like just micro wins do build momentum. And I believe momentum helps you stick with something longer and have more fulfillment in the process.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think stacking wins is like huge, and that's just a great way to like say it. Just stack like your like early wins, and
Totally.
love that story about drama. Like we're like the same age, so I grew up on it, and that's like
For
low
sure,
key.
man.
That's low key like a great guest to have.
Yeah,
Like
no,
drama. Everybody knows him.
he's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. But to the next point, like this brings me to like the whole like something like just following you and researching you. It's like I think like for me, at least from looking at you, is like you mastered the art of vision plus execution. Like you really like find a vision or a need in a market, whether it be a podcast for young kids or a book for young kids, and then now your new company MediaKits. And then not only do you have the vision, but then you execute it at such a high level. I'm not saying that everything you touch is gold and everything, but it's like, it's incredible to see that vision plus execution and you scaling it at such a high level. What would you attribute that skill to?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. There's definitely a lot of things that I have tried or experimented with that haven't turned out the way I want. And I think everyone can say that. But in terms of like where I'm focused now, and especially with MediaKits, I believe that when it comes to like pursuing anything, like the biggest thing is like actually having commitment and being like serious about it, right? Like when you want to write a book or when you want to start a company, like yes, it could maybe start off as a side hustle and you want to just test the market and see if people would like this. You're doing surveys, but as soon as you think you have something and you want to pursue it, whether that's a podcast or starting a company, like going all in, it's quite an understatement. Like as soon as you commit to something, especially a company, like it becomes your life, right? Like there's no part-time founder. And if you are a part-time founder, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of hurdles. And looking back, you might, not think that's the best idea. So for me, when it comes in, to talk about MediaKits, we launched the company last August. And for people that don't know MediaKits, it's a software tool. It's the easiest way for creators to share their real-time data and analytics. So you connect your social platforms within 30 seconds. You have a beautiful media kit that you can share with a brand if you're looking to a brand deal, whether you're a podcaster, a musician, or a Twitch streamer, or just an overall creator / influencer. So how this idea came about, because I think when it comes to bringing things to fruition and actually executing on them, things take time, especially, I'm a non-technical founder, and we have an incredible senior engineer, and he's the one that really helped to bring it to life. But finding that person takes time. So to get into the origin story of MediaKits, it's been quite a ride where, as I said, we launched in terms of like bringing the product live to the market last August 2021. But the story of how it came about goes back to like 2018. So my co-founder and I, Kieran O'Brien, we were back home living in Virginia. He's from DC. As I said, I'm from Richmond area. I was still in high school after a year of like doing my podcast and like building a personal brand. One of our good friends that we're still like best friends with until this day, his name's Jeff, better known as JR Garage. And he's a big automotive YouTuber at the time with like 500,000-600,000 subscribers. Now he has like 1.2, 1.3 million. And I remember him like frantically texting us, calling us, saying like, hey guys, this is in 2018. Pennzoil reached out to me. They asked me for my media kit. I don't know what it is. Can you guys make one? I know you guys are in like the marketing and social media world. So Kieran and I, we end up going on Canva or Photoshop and like really understand what a media kit is. It's like a digital resume, or your best foot forward when pitching yourself. And we ended up making him one. We grab his headshot, we write a little bio, we tell him to send us screenshots of his social analytics, we put them together, make it look pretty. And within a couple hours, we send it to him and he gets the brand deal. And then 2-3 weeks later, he comes back to us and was like, hey guys, Ferrari contacted me. They want to fly me down to Daytona Beach, Florida. They asked for my media kit, but this one's outdated. I've had videos go viral. I've changed my profile picture. I want to change my bio. Like, can you guys go edit all this and send it back? So, we're going back, we're changing 1s to 2s and 3s to 4s and like changing all this data that's very like manual labor. We're changing his bio, we're exporting it as a PDF, we're sending it.
And this was still, sorry to cut you off, this is still in like 2018, like when the Creator Economy is just,
Yeah,
booming.
totally.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like, the Creator Economy has been a thing for almost a decade now, but like really the last couple of years, it's really picked up. So I say this because he ends up getting the deal with Ferrari, and we're like, why isn't there a way for creators to easily share their data and analytics that never get outdated, that you can simply share through a link and have all the customization you can think of all in one place? And that's when we had the idea for MediaKits. But at the time, Kieran was running his automotive marketing agency. I was just starting my podcast and really going all in on that. And looking back, if we were to start it then, it probably wouldn't have picked up momentum because we didn't have the experience or network or just overall business experience to launch a tech company. So we shelved the idea, we put it to the side, and fast forward 2 years, bringing us to 2020. Kieran and I are living in Arizona, and this is like early to mid 2020 when the creator COVID's happening, we're quarantined. TikTok's really starting to blow up. You see, influencers like Charli D'Amelio and Josh Richards really just becoming celebrities overnight. And we're like, this MediaKits thing, no one's really done it the way we think it should be done yet. Let's go out and start it. So for a good like 6 months, it was just like a side project. We were spending maybe 20-30% of our time on it. We were bootstrapping it, putting our own money into it. And that brought us to the tail end of 2020. And, software is expensive, right? Like we were working with some contractors, and that brought us to the beginning of 2021. We're like, hey, let's go raise a family and friends round and really take this thing seriously and really scale this company and build something that we're proud of and something that can really impact the creator economy. So that's exactly what we did. We started fundraising last like February, March of 2021. And then we closed just over $1 million, 1.25 million within 4 or 5 months. And then we ended up launching the product in August. And that's to your initial question, and why I tell that story is because I think having an idea is one thing, but the timing of it is also equally as important, right? Like I think a lot of people, they'll have ideas and they'll let them die, right? And maybe you could have said we did that for MediaKits, but the truth is, like, if you have a great idea and you don't think the time is right, like the truth is the time will never just be
right.
But yeah, I want to put this out there. Like, no matter if you have an idea 2 years ago or today, like if the timing wasn't right, like there's still an opportunity in today's market where I think that things are changing so fast, and the opportunities of remote work and working with great people is so extreme right now that, there's never been a better opportunity to start a company. But that's more so the origin story of MediaKits. And when it comes to bringing this idea to life, and the execution of it, things really started to pick up when we had the resources and the ability to build a great team. Because again, and I say this all the time, like Kieran and I, we're non-technical co-founders, right? Which could be looked at as a disadvantage, but for us, we use it to our advantage to build an incredible team and to make that our core focus. But yeah, it definitely, we're still early. I'm learning every day. And I think that's the fundamental answer to bringing something to life is just being excited about it and having people that you're excited to build with.
Yeah, totally. I mean, two things. First of all, congratulations. Like when I was watching the launch of MediaKits, I'm like, such a genius, simple, incredible idea. You're the perfect person behind it. Like everything is kind of like that outlier Malcolm Gladwell moment where it's just like, it's the right person, it's the right time, in the right industry. So congratulations for MediaKits. But just brings me to another point, like, just looking back at you and the things that you've achieved, like you've always seemed like you don't settle and you're always, you go from author to podcast to co-founding. Like, how do you know when you like kind of not like outgrew your last venture, but like when it's time to move forward in your career?
I love this question because I think that we all go through moments where, like you shift your identity or you change your career or you change a habit, right? Like if you're someone that doesn't run and then 6 months later you're running every weekend, there's a transitional period that in the moment you probably don't notice, or maybe you want to start running more and then you start running more, but then 6 months later you're a completely different person. You're like, wow, I can't even imagine myself not running, or it becomes your identity. Where I think I've had, to your point, like many moments where like during those transitional periods, right, when I was 16 doing Facebook advertising to then starting my podcast and that really becoming who I am and what I want to do, to then having a media company, to then doing dozens of live events when I lived in Arizona, to writing a book when I was 17, to just, helping people with viral TikTok marketing stuff. That was like a portion of time, to then, launch MediaKits and so many like little things in between there. I've always tried to journal, like sometimes every day, sometimes like minimum once a week, and just document, what I'm doing at the time, what's important to me. And, like obviously my goals, where I think that it's very easy to not be aware when you're in a transitional period, where I think that, with MediaKits, for example, or let's say, let's bring it back to even the podcast. Like the moment I was reading Gary Vee's book, Crushing It, and the last chapter was about podcasting, it instantly spoke to me. And the same thing with NFTs happened to me last year, where it's like something just is like, this makes sense. This is interesting. Like, let me start dabbling in it. And I think that that's how any like next chapter starts in your life, where something really captures your attention and starts consuming your mind, and what you want to read about and what you want to watch YouTube videos on, and something you want to learn about overall. Where like I remember with podcasting, I started to listen to so many podcasts, and then I started to follow like my favorite ones, and then I ended up obviously starting my own. And then I started putting out episodes, and then fast forward, 90 days, I did 60 interviews because I had this meeting with Gary Vee set up from like a simple DM on Instagram. And then 90 days later, I was completely in a different lane, like full-time podcasting. That's who I am. That's what I'm doing. That's my brand. That's everything. And, I didn't understand that right when I was reading that chapter. Like, that's what I want to do. That's everything that I'm going to become. But it's just having that. And I think this has always been, and I said at the beginning, like an innate skill set in who I am. And I believe everyone has innate skill sets and you have to lean into them. In mine was curiosity, right? Like and then again, I'll say it one more time. It's very easy to shut off an opportunity, to not go to an event, to not pick up a book, to not watch that video, or not finish that article you want to read. But having the open mind and the curiosity to learn something new, to try something new, and to most importantly, like become somebody new. And when it comes to your identity and how you think about yourself, is a lot more challenging than just simply, closing your mind off to it. Where I think that for every transition in my life, it's came through just following that curiosity. And I believe if all of us can, say yes more to things that make sense. I think saying yes to something is saying no to another thing. So if you feel like something's calling you or you want to learn more about it, like really do take the time to dive into it. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I think you nailed on the head.
I think this would be great to talk about on this pod. This week I played pickleball for the first time with a bunch of buddies of mine in Arizona. I was there this week for a meeting. And I think that game's not like a physical intense sport, but you have to have confidence to try something new. So to your point, I think I've always had a level of confidence from sports, but in business, it's more so like a mental confidence from something. And I think if I was to fundamentally break this down and give people like 3 critical things to build confidence in themselves, it would start off like this. Like, we've all been in social situations, whether that you're on a train, you're on a bus, you're at the mall, you're talking to someone, or mainly at this point at an event, right? If you're at some business conference, just going up to someone and introducing yourself and learning more about someone that you've never met before and having that confidence to do that, right? Like all of us, some of us may be introverts, some of us may be extroverts. I've definitely leaned towards like extroverted, but the moment I started putting myself in situations that were very uncomfortable when I was like 16, 17 years old, being in a room with a bunch of 30, 40, 50-year-old speakers, entrepreneurs, incredible founders, my confidence, like very much so, like deflated, right? Like you become the, you're not the smartest person in the room and you never want to be that, but you have so many like aspirational figures around you that your confidence may like take a back seat. So to build confidence, number one is like put yourself out there and just introduce yourself to people and start learning more about them and walking up to them, right? Like, and this is an example. I remember like before I interviewed Larry King, there was a moment that it was like, truthfully, I think a defining moment where I met his son Chance and we had a good relationship for a couple months since I met him. And I remember being at the Century City Mall here in Los Angeles. And for some odd reason, I don't know like why in the universe this was happened, but it was just perfect. I met Chance's son a couple weeks prior to this moment. Larry King and someone he was with was just in his wheelchair and he rolled right past me. And in that moment, I didn't just turn my head and introduce myself. And there was like a 6 to 10 seconds where I'm like, I have to go say something, right? And you have that feeling of like, should I do it? Oh my God, he's with people. And I think if you can live in that moment your whole life, but then actually execute on it and go up and introduce yourself, say hello. For me, like I got a picture with him. I sent it to his son. I was like, hey, I just ran into your dad. And, then a month later, I ended up having Larry on my podcast back at the end of 2019. And truthfully, I think if I didn't do that, the events wouldn't have unfolded exactly how they did. And I think just, number one is just introduce to yourself to people. Number two is it's very easy to say, I'm not a confident person. I have things I need to work on, and just to speak yourself into someone that lacks confidence. I've seen this with family members, with friends. And I think just, you have to be aware that you want to build your confidence and that you want to get better at it. That goes for anything, right? If you want to become a better runner, right? Like I've been training for a marathon. If I said, hey, I'm not a runner, which I did say for a while, oh, I'm not a runner. And then, I did like 17 miles. That was my max distance a couple of weeks ago, training for a marathon. Ended up hurting my knees and I had to take some time off. But like how you speak about yourself and, are you the person that says, I am confident, I am going to, go do the things that make me uncomfortable? I think it's super important. And then number 3, I think is just repetition, right? Like what can you do outside of the things I'm mentioning here that are maybe in your mind that you think of when you hear a conversation on confidence? Like what can you do to build that skill set, right? Whether that's cold emailing somebody or get cold calling a business and you want to close them on a deal, like in terms of a sales prospect, right? Like doing sales, which I've done a lot of in the past, build your confidence so fast, right? I never personally did door-to-door sales, but I did do some level of like door-to-door when I was selling like fundraising cards in high school for my football team. And I think just like little moments like that, I think everyone can look back on where you're like, there was confidence there and I had to embrace it. But, I don't want to go on a tangent here, but I think that overall, like having confidence will not only change how you live your life, but it helps you get more clear on who you are. And, that goes for confidence about your identity, confidence in your relationship, confidence in your business, confidence in everything. But again, like I think confidence and gratitude go hand in hand. And I know I'll end on that because I think if you can be grateful for everything you have and every experience, the missed opportunities, whatever it is, you can be confident in your next move due to the lessons learned in the past.
Totally. No, I mean, I love that. I think you nailed on the head. Like, I think like Tim Ferriss's like definition of success is like, how many uncomfortable conversations are you willing to have? So obviously, stepping out of that comfort zone, even when you're saying like Larry King, you had that 6 to 10 second, moment of like those like deep emotions start flooding. Like that is where, you step out of your comfort zone and grow. Yep. And at the end of the day, like what's the worst case scenario? He says no, like no, but like that is exactly how you start, honing that like skill of confidence. And I love how you kind of broke that down. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so last thing, one of the last things I want to talk about is, I mean, you touched on like MediaKits, and you talked about like your little NFT, not your little NFT, but just like your interest in NFTs and stuff. But obviously like MediaKits is in the creator economy. And I was wondering, how Web3 is kind of changing the creator economy and what you guys are thinking of the implications of that for your company.
Yeah, MediaKits, fundamentally, we launched it to give people some context, and our business is based off of some incredible like social integration. So we're integrated with Facebook and Instagram when we launched Twitter and YouTube. Now more recently we launched our TikTok integration and our Twitch integration, and next we're launching Spotify for podcasters like yourself and like myself and musicians. But fundamentally it's Web2 oriented right now, social integrations, like the main A-list social platforms. But when we think about Web3, it definitely opens up an entire new rabbit hole that we've thought about a lot. And we do have plans to do some type of integrations. I can't speak too much about it now, but I think that the creator economy overall and the way it's growing, the intersection of creator economy and the phrase, what does the creator economy mean? It's just creators that are putting out content mainly on social media that are monetizing it and making a full-time income. Therefore, you're a creator, and there's so much creative expression that's in that, right? From food bloggers to podcasters to just your overall like Instagram influencer to your TikTokers. There's so much in that where I think that, and we've all seen this, like the immersion of Web3 and NFTs. I've really been like deep into the space for the past almost a year now, from like last February, March, just learning about it and like immersing myself in it, where I think that Web3 creators, whether that's creators of NFT projects or creators that are just putting out content about Web3, it's a very, like it's in parallel, right? Like if you're following the creator economy and the industry and you're seeing all these tools, chances are you are also have a pulse on Web3 and what's happening there, because there's so many like Web3 influencers now and people doing Twitter spaces and people doing Clubhouse, where it really just is a very aligned conversation. And yes, we do plan on dabbling into Web3. It's not something that's like hey, this is a instant priority, but we are excited about it, for the MediaKits, but also for myself when it comes to the opportunities of Web3 and like the whole podcasting sector as well. I think it's going to get super interesting. But yeah, I'm just a big fan of the space and really a big fan of the technology overall.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you like dropped your NFT with Television, which was really cool. So I saw that, followed that, loved that. But I'm curious on like, just like analyzing the market. Are these creators like aware of like Web3 and the behaviors that could actually help them? Like what does the average creator kind of understand in terms of, how much ownership more they could be getting, and have greater individuality and actually become the economy and not the product for YouTube and TikTok, and, get more revenue split? Like, are they kind of aware of these behaviors, or is it kind of like a slow conversation that's going to, day by day get bigger?
Yeah. I mean, I think like for us, we have just over 20,000 creators on MediaKits, and, we're always running surveys and asking them questions. And I think that the majority of creators that at least I speak to are aware of, the phrase NFTs now, right? Right. The last year, and if the word or the, NFT has been such a popular hashtag or whatever it may be, where I think creators are aware of it, but they are unaware of the impacts it will have on their business in the next 5 to 10 years,
Yep.
and especially the opportunities that it will create.
Yep.
And I think that, I spend a lot of time on Twitter now. I love reading like in-depth Twitter threads from high-level entrepreneurs, and I love just the whole Twitter tech scene is just interesting, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it's fun.
Yeah.
But with Twitter integrating like, hey, you could add an NFT as your profile picture, like that simple feature, I think brings us more closer to the everyday influencer, to understanding like, hey, why is digital ownership important? Why is this new technology important to my business? And, I think it is still very, very early for creators to fully immerse it without just like, hey, let me launch an NFT project. I think that's not the way to go. But creators, like I can't speak on it too much, but a creator I was with yesterday, he's an incredible travel influencer. And he was talking to me about this NFT project and how it was in alignment with his brand. And it just made sense to the level of utility and the community he wanted to build. And I think for any creator that's out there that's either listening to this or watching, building community in the Web3 world is by far the most important factor of what you do. And with that community, you can build something incredible long-term. I think Gary Vee has done an incredible job at this, and he's really like the guiding light for what the opportunity is with VeeFriends, where there's real life utility. He's doing an annual incredible event. He has like these podcast panthers that you could have Gary on your podcast, which I wish I had. But so much utility, and he's building real IP. And obviously he's someone that can execute at such a high level with his background in VaynerMedia and having hundreds of employees. Yep. And it's very hard to like compare because he's executing on such a high level. But if you could take just 1%, 5%, 10% of what he's doing, understand what he's doing, whether you're a VeeFriends holder or not, I think that you can learn a lot from the community he's built and how he's went from this, entrepreneur, then social media creator with tens of millions of followers, to then one of the biggest, in my opinion, like Web3 influencers with an incredibly successful project. Not only has he made an abundance of money, I think it's like over $100 million over the last 9 months from transactions. I think I saw that in some clip, and I'm sure it's just grown since then, right? But I think that the opportunity, not only from a financial perspective, but a community and brand and the way he says it, legacy perspective, this is a 10, 20, 50-year play when it comes to, if you're a creator that wants to do this for the rest of your life, definitely start thinking about how you can immerse yourself in this new Web3 world, because it's only going to get bigger and only going to get more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's like, well, Gary Vee is the god. I call him the godfather of Web3. But no, I mean, it just, it makes so much sense for the average creator. And because it's just like this collective value of, the creator and the community, and they grow and build together, which I think is the behavior that we're going to be shifting towards in the foresight in the next 5 to 15 years. But that's incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be so interesting to see how this plays out, how it gets mass adopted. I mean, we could see, bringing it back, Nike, Adidas, like all these, big brands, and even like old Web2 brands like Limeware doing like NFT marketplaces. So it's definitely like something to pay attention to. And I know you're super tapped in, and I see all your stuff. So it's just gonna be incredible to see, what the conversation looks like a year from now, so it's constantly evolving. So, I'm here and just trying to pay as much attention to it as possible, but and I'm sure you're doing incredible stuff with it behind the scenes as well. So, but yeah, Casey, I didn't want to keep you too long, but I just had like the most incredible time to learn from someone who, off the record, like when I started my podcast like 2 years ago, you were in like the top 5 people that I wanted to get, because, you're just super impressive and inspiring. And, one of those full circle moments where I kind of had it, and you reached out and you were super easy. And I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Of course. No, such a pleasure to be on, Andrew. Such a pleasure to meet you. I had such a good time.
If you guys enjoyed the podcast, follow us on Instagram at Inside the Feed Podcast, and let us know what you like and what you want to see from us. Once again,